Advocacy. Oh, hello everybody. My name's Karen Ford Cull, and I'm the Legislative Director of Legislation for 33rd District PTA this year. I want to say hello to everybody, and we are talking tonight about legislative advocacy, really mainly at a unit level, but also at a council level. So this is a training for chairs who are legislative advocacy chairs, and that's a position I've done both at a unit level, and I'm currently doing at a council level. So I'm the chair at Redondo Union High School, and also at the Redondo Council of PTAs, as well as being the director at 33rd. So I hope that there are some people here. I can see a number of people here who have done this, been doing this role for a while, and maybe there are some new people as well who are new to this role. If you go to the next slide, Nanette, we'll look at today's objectives. So the first thing we're just going to look at is why we're doing advocacy, and we're also going to look at the job description. I think a lot of people aren't really quite sure what the legislative advocacy chair is doing, and a lot of units don't have one. So if you're new to the role and you don't have someone who was doing it before, you don't have a lot of guidance of what it entails. And I want everyone to know that, I'm here to support you. If you have any questions, you can always email me. Okay, so, and then we're going to look at some of the common questions about what it means by non-partisan, what legislative action means, and how does PTA decide its platform. And we're going to take a particular look at legislative policy number 11, a very important policy, and where to find information and resources. What does a chair do, and some ideas about how to make a legislative visit or a candidate forum, do a study or a letter writing campaign. And we've got people on the call who've had experience doing that, so that's interesting to hear from them. And then conferences and monthly calls. The next slide, please. Okay, so why do we do advocacy? PTA is an advocacy organization. We all know PTA in terms of putting on the carnivals and doing events at school, and that's part of our advocacy, is to create a community at our schools. But the national PTA and the California PTA have a long history of 126 years of advocating for all children. Our mission is to positively impact the lives of all children and families. So just as examples of the advocacy that has been in the past, famously in the 19th century, PTA advocated for kindergarten. Now we see we were advocating also for preschool, and we have coming in California universal TK. We have advocated recently for late school start. We always seem to be advocating for more funding for education, but also a number of other things beyond education, community concerns. Those are the kind of things that we advocate for. And it's aimed at the lives of all children and families. Do you want to go to the next slide, please, Nanette? Thank you. So why do we advocate for legislation in particular? PTA is a child advocacy association, and its legislative mission is to speak on behalf of all children and youth at the local, state, and federal levels. One of the purposes of PTA is to secure adequate laws for the care and protection of children and youth. So I wonder if you can drop into the chat what motivates your advocacy. Obviously, choosing to be a legislative advocacy chair, you are interested in advocacy. What motivates you to do that? Can you put that in the chat? Or I know one of you is driving. Don't try and text while driving. Do you see anything in the chat? To show up and represent for positive change for all children and youth, wanting all families and guardians and children to have the things my family and children enjoy. That's really great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so PTA promotes and encourages legislative advocacy for the education and welfare of all children and youth. So if we go to the next slide, this I thought was a great slogan from the job description online, which was, it said, remember, no amount of fundraising can have as much impact as a single piece of legislation. So that's a really interesting thing to think about, that, you know, all of the other people on the board, your role is just as important as any other board member. So on this slide, you'll see that, and we can share these slides. And Nanette will put the link in the chat for the slide deck. You'll see there is here a link to the job description for Legislative Advocacy Chair. So if you click on that link, it takes you to the PTA's, the CAPTA website, and there are job descriptions there for all the positions, and it explains there exactly what you are supposed to do. It must be quite old because it says chairman. I haven't seen that for a long time. But you don't have to be a man. As local officers of the largest grassroots child advocacy organization in the state, PTA legislative advocacy chairs are responsible for demonstrating leadership on children's issues at the local level by educating PTA members, community members, and elected officials about PTA's issues of concern and legislative priorities and goals. Okay, so that's the job description. Yes, if we go on to the next one, yes. Here's a slide with too much text on it. One of the things I always complain about, but here I'm doing it in my own presentation. So what does it mean that we are non-partisan? PTA, every PTA is a 501c3, and as such must be non-partisan. It doesn't mean you can't advocate for changing particular laws, but that kind of advocacy must be, it can't be a substantial part of what you do. It has to be within certain limits. But certainly that's what we can advocate for. What non-partisan means is that PTA must never support or oppose political parties or candidates, including those running for school boards on non-partisan slates. So the fact that the school board person is running without a party doesn't, it would still be partisan to support a school board candidate. We just never ever support any candidates. However, PTA may adopt a position expressing its support or opposition for issues dealing with health, safety, education, and general well-being of children and youth, but only to the extent permissible with respect to the requirements of each PTA's tax exempt status. So basically the things that you do that are advocating to support or oppose a particular issue, which is a legislative issue, has to be, you know, only a part of what you can do. It can't be everything you do all day long, but it wouldn't be like, not what you do, of what your unit does. There's nothing in the law or the PTA bylaws that prohibits members as individuals from exercising their civic responsibilities in personal or partisan ways, including running for office. So being legislative chair or a president doesn't stop you from running for office. You don't have to resign if you do that. You have to be quite careful that you're not using your PTA resources to do so. You can also support candidates for office as a private person, but you must always indicate, if you're a PTA president and you often post stuff about the PTA on your Facebook or whatever, you should really post, this is my private Facebook, when you're endorsing a candidate, and not use your title when you're doing so. But you're still a private citizen. You can do anything that any other citizen can do. PTA units may be involved in legislative activities. So the things that you can do as a unit are supporting or opposing local issues that affect children or services to children in their respective communities based on the study of the issue and a vote of the association. So that's one way of supporting a local issue. Like sometimes there's a parcel tax or a school bond coming up in your local area, and your PTA wants to support it or oppose it. Then you would do a study in your unit. That doesn't have to be your job as a legislative chair. It's a group activity. And then once you have completed the study, you would vote in your association. Your association would read your study and they would vote on whether to support or oppose. And then after that, you would be able to do legislative action. However, you should always be careful about not doing it on school property. And the other way that we do legislative activities is by supporting California state PTA positions on legislation that's needed to achieve the purposes of PTA. So at the bottom here, it does say the legal stuff from the IRS about that you may not devote more than an insubstantial part of your activities to influence legislation or participate, and you may not participate in any political campaign on behalf or in opposition for a candidate. So a candidate is different from a ballot measure, which you can support, right? Next slide, please. So what do we mean by legislative action? Well, there's bills that are state or federal bills that have been proposed and are going through the bill process, and California PTA chooses to support or oppose the bills or take no action. There are legislative ballot measures, including constitutional amendments, bond measures, and proposed changes in the law that they may choose to support or oppose, and statewide initiatives and referendum. So when California PTA takes a position on these actions, then they will transmit that to us. So they'll first transmit it to me, and then I'll transmit it to everyone else, but also to the councils, and then the councils will transmit it to the units, and then you will transmit it to your members. So this is how the California PTA is able to utilize its system to get the word out when we need support for bills. So you may get messages alerts that ask you to call your representatives about a particular bill or to support a ballot measure. Those decisions come from the California PTA, Legislative Action Committee, and from the legislation team at California PTA. So how do they, the next slide, yeah, thank you. How does California PTA decide what to advocate for? Well, first of all, they have national PTA legislation platform, and that's made up of national PTA positions and national PTA resolutions. And then we have the state PTA platform, which again is made up of state positions and state resolutions. Last year, we had some really great resolutions. We've got some more coming up this year from 33rd District, where members of 33rd District have proposed resolutions for this California State PTA to adopt. Those will be voted on at the California State PTA Convention in May. And once you have a resolution, like for example, last year, Nanette worked very hard on the equitable literacy resolution. That's now on the California PTA website, and you can look there to see all the different resolutions, and that tells you what you're authorized to advocate about. So you may find that if you go to that, you have the authority from those resolutions to advocate on those subjects. And the California State PTA Legislative Action Committee decides what of those things are going to be, how those are going to apply to new legislation that comes up. So when a new legislation comes up, a new bill, and they will look at it and they'll decide, okay, what do we have here in the platform that says that we can support it? If, like right at the moment, there's nothing in that about cannabis. So if there was a new law about cannabis, it would be difficult for the California State PTA to take a position on a particular law about that. And so that's why having a resolution is really important to provide us with the authority to advocate on those topics. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that this is the main thing you should remember, is that until this California State PTA has taken a position on a legislative measure, or specifically declines to take a position, support or opposition should not be expressed in the name of PTA. So is the issue a statewide issue? If not, then that's something you can decide locally, but you have to do a study and a vote of the association. If it is a statewide issue, then it's up to the California State PTA. You can write to them and say, hey, I think it would be a really good idea for you to support this, and it is supported by this resolution. But they're going to decide what it is that they are going to take action on. Is the issue supported by a position taken by the California State PTA? You have to look at the positions. Is there a resolution that supports your issue? And if they're local issues, they require a study and a vote by the association. So this slide sort of talks you through the process of deciding whether you can advocate for something or not when it's an issue. So now we have to really focus. I did want to actually, if we just go back to that one, is it before, do we have a link to the resolutions? I wanted to make sure everyone got to see where you look at the resolutions, that those aren't links though, are they? I can just, can you just go to the, before we get to this one, Nanette, can we just go to the California PTA website and put in legislate. I'll talk you through it if you show it.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second. Let me pull that up.
Yeah.
I apologize if I had the link messed up here. 1 moment. It's so funny. I'm asking it to. Sorry, it's being difficult. I think it wants me to stop sharing. Give me one.
It may be that it's on the next slide that it was on, but we can just show it.
Yeah, give me one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I can edit this out, you guys. It'll look like it never happened on video. All right, let's do this, and then
Okay.
I believe.
Yes, that's right. So if you go to
now I have too many tabs. Hold on. See
yeah, you need just the CAPTA website, the main, California PTA website.
Handbook.
Yes. So if you go to focus areas and then you get the list, right? And then you can see either position statements and resolutions. So on the left-hand side, the gray, do you see it's in yellow? Yes, yellow is resolutions. So that's already up. So just scroll down and then keep scrolling down that page.
This page?
And everyone, yes. And everyone see at the bottom here. Okay. So go up a little bit more. It should have a link to get to the resolutions.
Oh, give me 1 second. Maybe I.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's it. Okay. So hit, that's the resolutions procedure book. What we want
wanted to, you just want to see the resolutions, is that correct?
Yes.
It's loading, it's doing stuff. Why it's doing stuff slowly? I couldn't tell you. Probably because oh, and it took me to the procedure book.
Okay, yeah, we must have clicked on.
Oh, that I did. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, you guys. This is me messing up. Look away for just a moment. Let's pretend.
There they are. There they are. So there you see the list of all the resolutions that have ever been passed, and you click on each one and it tells you what it says, and those things tell you what you're authorized to advocate for. And so that's a lot of reading. There's also national ones, and there's also policy statements, both for state and national. So if we go back to the slide before that, with the people, yes. So you can see here, that's how you check if the issue is supported by a position statement, is the issue supported by a resolution, right? And then if we go to the next slide, okay, so this is an important thing, legislation policy 11. So if you click on that link there that says legislative policies and procedures, then that's it. So this takes you to very important, adopted in April 2023, all of the policies and procedures that apply to legislative work, right? And so this is interesting reading, but the most important thing is policy number 11. And so I did want to draw everyone's attention to number 11. Yes, it's in the slideshow, but Anand, can you put that link in the yeah, okay. And so policy number 11 it's important that if we have materials, and I think this would also be anything like something like if you're putting something electronic in like a newsletter or something, and so it's really important that we don't use school district resources when we're advocating on a position related to a legislative issue. So if we're advocating on a ballot issue, we can't put that in the principal's email, right? We could put it in our own PTA email that gets sent home to get sent to our members, right? We can't give things out at school, and we shouldn't really be handing out legislative materials when we are on school property, even if our PTA meeting is on school property. We have to wait until we get to the sidewalk. Okay, so that's an important rule that's there to make sure that public schools are not being used for political purposes. So that's number 11. If we go back to the slideshow now. So, I summarized that on the slide, saying that you can send informational material on PTA positions through school resources, but not if they're related to a particular legislative issue, right? So we have to find other means of distributing that kind of material. So if we go to the next slide. Okay, and this is where I thought we could kind of start more discussion related thing. So let's practice this this way of understanding what we can do and we can't do. First of all, I wanted to show everyone the California PTA Leaders website. That's a link there at the top, Nan. You can go, yeah. So if you go to that website, you log in.
It's already logs me in because I'm always logged in.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
really easy to sign up. You just need your unit number, I think, is the only
yeah.
requirement.
And they do suggest not logging in with your PTA email, but your regular email, because it knows like who is an officer of each unit. So use your own email. So that does show us the same things as we saw before. We can find under the focus areas, we can find current legislation and position statements. Right now it's a little bit empty, and that's because we're at a strange point in the legislative cycle, in the sense that most of the bills that are current right now are just going across the governor's desk and either getting a yay or a nay. And there are some bills that have been kind of put on hold and are what you call 2-year bills, and will come back into play. And then we'll see between now and January a lot of bills being introduced, and then we'll really start the process in the spring. So right now there's not a lot to talk about. And so all we have right now is some legislative priorities. And so at this time, there isn't much to report, but this is where you would go to see if there was alerts or a particular advocacy updates or what they were supporting. And this is where you would get the stuff for your legislative report from. So if we go back to the slideshow, I came up with an example, and the example is firearms and assault weapons is an example of a California PTA policy, right? It was adopted in July 1990 and revised in 2018 by the Health and Community Concerns Commission. So this wasn't a resolution, but it was like a policy built out based on other resolutions. So we can see on that California PTA website, you can go to the position. So if we go back there, and we go to position statements, and then you go down to firearms and assault weapons. That's it. And then it tells you. And so you can read this It tells you what our position is. And obviously, it talks about the importance of a safe learning environment and keeping school gun free, but defers to local collaborative decision making to allow for the presence of law enforcement deployed in community-oriented policing. So California PTA supports state and federal legislation and restrictions that protect children and youth from gun violence, and would require firearm licenses, 3-day waiting periods, require proof of a state certified course in appropriate firearms, restrict internet guns sales, especially including that can be used to modify guns, enforce state and federal and state minimum age requirements, require safety devices, including child-proof trigger locks on all firearms offered to sale, prohibit sale and possession of assault weapons for non-military and non-law enforcement use, and require a registration process, prohibit a non-military, non-law enforcement purposes, ban the manufacture, sale, or possession of junk guns, ban armor-piercing ammunition, control the illegal possession of firearms and other lethal weapons on school campuses, and support federal and state funding initiatives for the research and causes of and effects of gun violence. So it goes on and says further, it supports education programs that stress the importance of firearms safety and awareness, including the risks of unsecured firearms in the home and the use and availability of firearm safety devices, including trigger locks. Education programs to inform parents and community members about the harm and injury of gun violence, and public awareness campaigns regarding the importance of legislation for the safety and protection of the public, especially children and youth. Okay, there's a lot of text there. So we go back to the slideshow now. So my question is for the group: does that mean that you can invite? The question we have, for discussion: can you invite Moms Demand Action to speak at your in-person PTA meeting at school? What does everyone think? Is that okay?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is the
Yeah.
Moms Demand Action a group that is pro or against, or is it just does that matter here?
Well, it's a good question. So Moms Demand Action is a group that is campaigning for restrictions on guns. So they are campaigning for legislation that is to restrict the sales of guns and etc. Yes. So there's the question: how much do you need to know about what Moms Demand Action, what they're campaigning for to decide this?
Ooh, that's a stumper.
Anyone else got any thoughts?
I can chime in. It's Liz. I actually have a question for you too, but for this,
Oh, we lost your sound, Liz.
oh, sorry about that. If they're not pushing a particular bill and they're there to increase gun safety awareness, then it would be okay, but they couldn't push a legislative initiative.
That sounds about right. What does everyone else think?
I was thinking the same. It seems like when reading the authority, an educational program is supported, and they do have a good educational program for safe storage of guns.
Yes. So here's an example where Moms Demand Action is pretty much a campaign group. And so nearly everything they do under Moms Demand Action is campaigning, right? And so in that sense, they would have to be partnering with us on a particular bill that California PTA was supporting for us to invite them to come and speak on that basis. But they have a program called Be Smart, which is an education program, right? And so you'll find that a lot of organizations have like a kind of separation between education and campaigning. So here, their Be Smart, I put a link to their website. You can also just text SMART to that number to set up your education. And what they'll talk about, they won't talk about changing the law at Be Smart. What they'll talk about is how to keep guns safely in the home, about the dangers of not keeping guns safely in the home. And they'll talk about, they'll actually sometimes bring gun locks that they'll give away for free as well. So, so that's an education program. It comes under parent education. You are advocating for children's safety, but you're not advocating for legislative change. If, for example, there was a ballot initiative and both PTA and Moms Demand Action were supporting that ballot initiative, that would be a different matter, because then we could invite them to come and talk about the initiative that we were supporting.
Is there usually a little bit of vetting that we have to do? I imagine, like, as a PTA group, maybe it's kind of researching their website and their positions and ensuring that, like, they don't have, like, they don't have odd little Facebook groups, or, maybe anything that could maybe turn people off or make them look less credible. So is that a vetting process sort of necessary as well?
Absolutely. I think if you can ask, like, can I come and see the presentation, like at another place you're doing it? So the Be Smart one, I know she does it and she does great. And we had it at our school. So I happen to know, like, they do very well with that, right? And it's, they're aware of the problem, that there's a lot of people who oppose their political position. So they want to be able to educate people on safety separately from that. And so they've worked really hard to keep it separate. But you're right, with any other group, you're going to have to research them a little bit. Have a look and see if they're a 501c3, right? Because if they are, then the same as you, they have some restrictions on how much they can campaign. If they're a 501c4, then they're allowed to campaign unlimitedly, right? So that's worth looking at. If they're a campaign organization or a political party, probably not wise to invite them. Also, do your due diligence and just find out, who the group is and what their purpose is, right? Elizabeth, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for just backing up a quick second. Can I just ask a question on distribution of materials? Like, let's say we have a meeting and we want to communicate it to the PTA. I understand that it can't go on the principal's letter. Two questions. It can or cannot go on the PTA newsletter, and can we discuss it as like a agenda item at the PTA meetings?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. And, so if it's something that's authorized, right? So as long as it's something that's authorized for us to advocate for, or it's something that you're looking for that authorization because it's a local study, then yes, it can go on the agenda. And I wouldn't even worry about it being listed as an item on the agenda if that agenda was going out in the principal's letter, because it's not really giving you information other than that you're going to talk about it, right? You have to be careful. For example, if our PTA newsletter ends up on the School Loop website, right, then think about what it is that you're putting in that newsletter that ends up on something that's school property. Basically, do not use resources that are funded by school district funds to campaign for things.
Okay. And then just one last quick question. At Toledo, we have a decently active app, like a PTA, I'm sorry, not app, a PTA Instagram. If it is something that Cal PTA is asking to us to communicate, can we put like vote no on prop blah 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 on our PTA app?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
It can't be the only thing you posted all week.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Or every week nonstop. I mean, yeah.
Well, it has to be in substantial use, right?
Okay.
So like as if you post, you know, like lots and lots of flyers and it's just one out of those flyers, that's fine.
Yeah.
If that was the only thing you were ever posting, then that would be on the edge there.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you so much.
Any other questions about that?
No, but we do have a couple of hands raised. I think Danielle had her hand up.
I just had a comment to that when they were talking about the principal's email, right, versus the PTA's newsletter. And so we had kind of a unique situation because we have a PTA newsletter, but our school lets us send that to the whole school. And so we had to be very cautious because it's going to the whole, it's a PTA newsletter, but it goes to the email list of the whole school. And so I'm not sure if other councils might be experiencing that or units. So I just wanted to share that. Just be mindful that it might be a PTA newsletter, but it might be going to the district email list at that school. So we cannot put it in there because of that, because it can only go directly to PTA members' emails. So yeah. Our workaround was that we basically did an informational piece inside the newsletter and then just said, check out the PTA website for more information. And so then on the PTA website, we had the support positions. And
you could also, if you had the ability to send an email just to your members, you could also do that. I believe you can use Totem to do that.
That's what I was just going to mention, is that Totem, for pretty nominal fee, you can purchase credits. So in Totem, you would probably work with your president and membership chair, because obviously we're not working in a vacuum. But that is a good option because it's linked to all of your members that you have in Totem. And if your membership chair has been adding them to the Totem website, that's certainly an option. And I think like even some of the other member, like online member sites and web stores like Cheddar Up or Member Planet, some of them might also have email pieces as a part of it. I don't know much about those, but there are some other options even beyond that. But Totem is a great one, and it's baked in and also does like a pretty decent job with translation.
Thank you. I'd actually love to ask you guys a question on that. So our particular unit does not use Totem yet. And what I used to do legislation at a unit. This year I'm doing it for council. But what I've noticed is every time I asked for this at this time of year last year, like for the email list, it's non-existent for council level. So does anyone here know how to receive maybe that? Because we do have all schools are on Totem except for this one. Is there a way for the council to receive emails from all the schools in the council from Totem?
I think if you are your council, then you would be on all of the Totem thing. I've only looked at Totem from a president point of view, right? But there was someone from our council on also as an admin on our Totem, and anyone inside Totem can just download the list, right? Anyone in as admin, right, which is usually the officers who have to do that, right? And so I'm not sure if you're a council, if you can just download one list or you have to go and download one for every unit. But it would be more difficult with the one that wasn't on Totem, right? Because that's going to be they will do that.
Sure. Yeah, but putting my membership hat on, I know this is about advocacy, and advocacy and membership are right here together. as a council, you can, and this is really a council, I think, discussion that, again, probably, you'd want to talk to your president and maybe membership chair, but you can, as a council, request membership rosters. I know in the council I belong to, that's not an uncommon practice, because the members who join an association at the unit level are also members of your council, are also members of 33rd District, California State, and National PTA. So that we're not doing anything nefarious with it. So membership chairs at the unit level should be keeping rosters, even if that's on an Excel spreadsheet on their desktop or in the cloud via Google Sheets, or if they're using Totem to, manually add those one by one, just so they have a record of everything in one place, virtually. So if that's a concern, like you want the member records from a particular unit and they're not on Totem, which is neither here nor there, that certainly can be a request that your council makes. So I hope that's helpful.
It's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just know that there could be a little pushback. Sometimes units are like, what do you want with this info? We're like, okay, look, what are we going to do with this? We're really we needed to be able to send these alerts periodically. We're not going to blow your people up, email wise. And so anyhow, sometimes there's a little bit of I think, diplomacy there, but that's certainly an option as well.
Can we go, Nanette, to the next slide? Okay, yeah. So the most basic level of what is the job of a legislative advocacy chair. The first is at each meeting to make sure that advocacy is on the agenda and that it's non-partisan, right? So we've talked about what non-partisan means. But so if you can give a legislative report, I know it's difficult right now when we haven't been, you should get information from me, you're from your council chair, and you should be able to give that information to your association. I don't have any information right now, but as soon as I do, it'll come in large chunks. And then, so I see my role as making sure that you've got something to report, and then so your job is to share state and national issues, PTA materials, action alerts, and write articles in your PTA newsletters about the legislative priorities. And so that's something that you can really think about. Well, these are the things that PTA is working on, and talking to your president about how you can incorporate it into all the other things that you're doing in your units. Also important is to contact your local and national elected representatives. So that if it kind of helps if you have a particular thing that we're advocating for, and then it's easy to kind of contact them, send them an email and say you'd like to come and visit them about a particular issue. You want to really establish a relationship. Sometimes it's easier to establish a relationship with their staffers. And particularly if you can get a relationship with the booker, that's the person at their office who keeps their calendar. They're the most important person in that office. And also, when we do have an issue, speaking at your school board, asking the school board to support that legislation too. We'd like you to keep up to date with current PTA actions, and we'll do that through the legislative advocacy calls. In the past, there has been monthly California State PTA calls. And so when that's happened, that's been a great place to keep up to date, and it's a good thing to put in your report. I'm going to have a monthly call. So the next one is on November 14th. And so if you attend that and there are issues, you'll be able to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And so also there is going to be a conference in Sacramento, so that would be an important thing to participate in, and provide feedback on issues needing action. So if you're seeing something that your PTA really wants California PTA to be advocating on, send that back up the chain. This has got to be a two-way conversation, right? To next slide, please. Okay, what else can I do? Okay. A lot of units have organized a local candidate forum when they've had a school board election or a city council election. Relatively easy to do. I would recommend pairing with your local League of Women Voters. They do an excellent job of this. They have people who are trained to do it. And so I would thoroughly recommend pairing with them. And if you kind of don't have much response from your local unit, go to the LA County League of Women Voters for help. And then you can do a study of an advocacy issue, but you may also want to work with your community concerns chair or other board members to do that, because it's quite a big task. So you'd want to set up a committee, and there is a link on the California PTA leaders website that explains how to do a study. It talks you through the process. It looks quite daunting, but I think, you know, if you have good resources, good information, it doesn't have to be that daunting. Danielle could talk about her study. And a letter writing campaign is also something you might like to do. If we're working on a particular piece of legislation, you can organize your association to write letters on that to elected representatives. Okay, does anyone have a question on those things, the candidate forum, the study, or the letter writing campaign?
I have a question, Sharon. So in the past, we've gotten from national PTAs and predominantly from state PTA, we'll get a like an e-blast from them, and it'll have that take action button where you're basically just filling out your information, and then it generates the letter automatically that goes to either like Ted Lieu and those people, or if it's a local state issue, then it would go to Ben Allen or whoever your local advocates are. Is that something I have never in the past sent as a ledge chair, sent that out association wide, but that's something we actually could do, couldn't we?
Absolutely. I think that anything that comes from California PTA as a legislative alert can go to all your members, and you can also go on your social media, and you should mention it in your association meeting. I think those alerts, sometimes you think, well, what does it matter that they get an email, because now, but when it all goes together, if every California PTA ledge chair in every unit gets like 20 of their members to do that, that's a lot of emails, right?
Right. Exactly. I think the other thing that's really great about it too is, generally speaking, whoever the email goes to, you start getting their newsletter, right? That has all their contact information, where they're going to be, what they've got going on. And I've used that, in the past for different advocacy things, but that to me is also really great, because then you feel more connected, and they see who these things go out to. They see how many. That's one of the beautiful things about PTA, is that we're such a large body. When we do have a lot of people doing that, they take notice of that. So I think it's super important. And I've always just told my board about it. I've never really sent it out to the general association.
No, I think we should send those out to everybody, because your board might not be the people who are the 20 people who are going to click on it, right? But that you might find them in a larger group, and I think that it's something where if it's coming from California PTA, you know that it is solid in terms of it's okay to send it out, right? So I think that's a good way. But as you say, also another way to make a connection with your local representatives is to just go and click on to get asked to be on their email list, right? At least get the information from what they're doing. But you know, if you can make those connections, if you can make a relationship, that's even better. Okay, so next, making a legislative visit is the next slide. So yes, contact your legislator and CC the staffer if you can find out who that is. Ask around and try and find out who does their calendar. That is the most important information that you can get, is who does their calendar, and be very, very nice to those people. And then the or you can organize a group to go together, which is quite good, and agree on your talking points before the meeting and what you're going to talk about. But remember, you have to stay, if you're coming in and saying, we're here from the PTA, from, you know, Seaside PTA or whatever it is, you have to stick on the things that PTA is authorized to talk about. So there may be a lot of things that you personally want to talk to your legislator, and of course you can make that appointment anytime without the PTA name, but when you're there as PTA, you need to talk about the PTA agenda, right? And that's the same when we go to Sacramento in January with the California PTA legislative conference. We will make legislative visits, so I hope that I'll be able to set those up for you beforehand. I'll be contacting you all to try and find out who has good relationships that will help us set those up, and who needs help doing that, and also trying to make some groups, because I think that I want everyone to feel really supported, and it kind of works better to go in to visit the legislator with like 6 people than just like 1 or 2, right? So we'll try and form groups where we can go to, say, 3, like your own one, and then 2 others in a group that, you know, you're all going to your own, right? So that you go and meet and you see how other people meet, and you don't just meet your own representative, but they will give us an agenda to talk about. They'll give us talking points at the conference, right? So we will know what it is that we are advocating for at the time. And then leave something behind. So it can just be a 1-pager. It can be, you know, just a nice piece of paper that you've made talking about your PTA and what it is that we're advocating for. But you always want to leave some information behind. So some other things that people have done locally: take a group to Sacramento. PV always does their Capital Convoy, which is, you know, really lovely that they go as a group, parents and students, up to Sacramento and meet with legislators, and they show the kids around the Capitol and so on. We did do Sacramento Safari before the pandemic for many, many decades, I think, and we are starting to put together that idea again and how we'll do that going forward. And then the idea of doing Capital Comes to Home, which, you know, a similar idea that you bring your legislators to your school to talk to the students. I did it last week. I think I learned a lot from doing it. I wouldn't do it the same again. But in particular, I think it might work better to do it as like an evening event that parents and students might come to, and it would be a little bit freer with questions, because the school was quite limiting in what questions they allowed. And so I think that if we can it just make it a little bit more interesting if it was in a after school, outside school situation, still probably using school property, but it would just be a little bit if it wasn't in school hours, it'd be a little bit more flexible about what they could talk to the politicians about. But we'll see what happens next time we do it. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so I've already talked to you about the conference. So that's in Sacramento. And in January, I hope you will all come. I would suggest having them put it in your budget, in your unit budget. You'll need a flight to Sacramento and 1 night in a hotel. It's the Embassy Suite, so it's not an expensive hotel. And so that's really a valuable thing to go to. We're going to try and have a local conference, which I need to put together. And hopefully that's going to be in December. And we're going to have the 33rd District legislative calls. That's just, a Zoom call with me. But I think what I would love to do, what I think worked really well with Melissa last year, was asking everyone to tell what they were doing. Don't worry if you don't have anything to report. I'm not going to force you to. It's just share if you want. But I think that is super helpful. The reason why March 21st is highlighted is because I changed that date. So on some emails before it said the 14th, but I realized that I had another meeting that night, so I've changed it to the 21st. And then the second to last slide has some more links for you. Where you can find more information, how to make a study, the nonpartisan policy, and the job description, and something about election campaigns, because I know that some of you do have election campaigns this year, and how to do that. Very importantly, it's fine for you to invite local officials to talk to your PTA when they're elected. That's different from asking a candidate, right? But when they become a candidate, then they're a candidate, right? So if you want to invite your city council member or a school board member to your meeting, that's great. That gives everyone a chance to ask the elected official questions. But once we get into campaign time, be careful about inviting just one person out of when there's like 5 candidates, you can't just ask one candidate, right? Even if they're the elected official. These other EdSource is really good as a information on education policy. The budget challenge is fun. It's a little limited, but it basically allows you to decide what the budget is and see what happens. I tried it and ended up with a $10 billion deficit or something. I wanted too much. And then the other thing, which I think is really helpful, I didn't put it here, but in terms of learning about how the California education system works, Ed 100 is a program where you can learn about how the system works, and at the same time you get points for each chapter that you complete, and you can use the points put you in a lottery that you can win $1,000 for your unit. So that's something I often would say as the only thing, if I don't have much to report, I tell people all about Ed 100 because I think it's a good educating people about how our system works. Okay, anybody got any other questions? That's the last slide. Or anybody got any other advice that they want to give? Because I know we have some really very experienced legislation chairs here.
You know, I often think that the big challenge, at least wearing my council hat, is getting units to see the value of advocacy and trying to figure out how that looks at a unit level. So I'd welcome any thoughts on maybe if there are council leaders here, or even unit leaders who have started, who started having oh my gosh, who started the advocacy role, at their unit in recent years. That might be kind of helpful to hear, because I know I come from a council that's amazing, but fairly green in the advocacy space. And to Karen's point, I think she had opened up at the beginning saying, if you inherited not much of anything from somebody, then you're kind of building it from scratch, which can be pretty daunting. So
one thing that I really just realized after how many years of being the unit president was that we were always putting legislation at the end of the agenda, right? So if you are a council president, I think most people are actually chairs, but if, why not one day change it all around and put the leg chair first? Just to get that advocacy up front where everyone can see it, right? It doesn't have to be that it's always at the end of the meeting when half of the Zoom has dropped off, or a lot of people have already left. So encourage your president to be flexible about where she puts you on the agenda, and make sure that you are always on the agenda.
I like that. That's good advice. It probably makes sense, because I think you highlight what you think is most important, and sometimes that might be the upcoming fundraiser or fun run or whatever. And then the one bit that's probably the most important is the advocacy piece, and that goes to the back of it. I don't see any questions, so maybe we're good. Oh, I see one hand raised.
This is just, I'm so glad you brought that up, Nanette, because that's kind of my puzzling question in my mind is, this is as PTA, right? I know PTA is a local unit level. My children are still in school. And so it is a lot about the community events, which are so incredibly valuable to a community in fundraising for school resources. But I'm still just always surprised that this advocacy piece, which is what PTA is completely lost. And I don't find it just lost at the unit level either. I mean, we do advocacy in many different ways at council level, right? And we do studies. And so our council is very active, but then what's kind of missing is this communication to units. And I keep telling our council president, as like, we have to bridge this gap. There's like a huge gap with advocacy. And they're like, yeah, I'm all, and the response I get is, I know I'm just always so surprised that the units don't see the value in it, but I understand why, because they're removed from it. And I was like, but I feel like it's more simple than that. Like, if we as the council, because they have a president's meeting. I don't know if that's how all other councils are organized. Like, it's a president's meeting followed by our exec board meeting, or a president's meeting followed by our association meeting. And so it's like, if from the very beginning, it was just the expectation that to the presidents, that legislation was on the agenda. And like Karen mentioned, hopefully at the top. And so it was just commonplace. It wasn't this like, oh, what is this? Who are you? Why are you reaching out to us? You're a stranger amongst us, right? If it was just commonplace that presidents at all schools just had that ledge place, and that you would expect maybe a 5-minute update most months, some months maybe not at all. And so I think if we could, as councils, just make that happen, then there might not be a ledge chair, but then it would be the president that would be reading that short little bit. So I'm still trying to figure out how to improve this, because what I feel like is I'm very excited to move forward what's coming from California and what's coming from 33rd, and then I feel like a lot of it just stops here at council. Like, to get it forward to the units is quite tricky. So this is a piece that I'm still working on and trying to, it's like one of my advocacy pieces is just advocating to council to make legislation more common, and to figure out how we can kind of bridge the units better. So
I think thing, I mean, I bring Deborah in here because she was the council chair at Redondo, and you did a great job, Deborah. I think of making sure that the unit chairs, knew what was going on. And I mean, anyone on the council, really your role is to look after the unit, counterparts. And, the same as me setting up a call each month for all of you, you could also in your council, maybe even if you're relatively all local, just say, let's meet in a coffee shop on the third Tuesday of the month or something and talk about legislation, right? Just to give them, maybe wait until there's actually some legislation to talk about, but, to put it on their agenda that this is the day they're going to spend talking about it. And then, that thing is so important of being able to see it done, right? So what Deb did was, I was a president and I didn't have a ledge chair. I just couldn't find anyone who would take on that role, but maybe because they didn't know what that role was, right? So if you can get the ledge chair to come to your meeting, I'm happy to come to meetings, within reason. It's a big area, but I'm happy to come to meetings. Even better if you can have your council person come to a meeting, and sort of, if you don't have a ledge chair, they can do the ledge report, right? And then doing the ledge report, part of that can be to say, well, we need somebody in this unit to be responsible for doing this. Just to go to it's that easy. You just go to a call once a month, listen to what they say, and then report it to the association. Sometimes in PTA, you really have to make it sound easy. And this is a job which can be very easy. And it can also be very complex if you want it to be, right? You can do a lot with this, but you don't have to, right? Deb, I don't know if you want to talk about how you did that, like encouraging to get.
It's funny because when I was brought in and I was at the elementary level, and I had no idea what it was. I had no idea. And no one really could explain it to me very well until I, went to the conference. And when I went to the conference, I saw what it was all about. And so when you go to that conference, you get a whole different perspective. And from that perspective, I could then translate my excitement and my desire to be there and be the advocate to the people that were the unit chairs. Now, you're right. They're not, I think Alta Vista was the only unit that didn't have a chair. I told every single president, look, you have enough to do. You've got enough on your plate. You need to find somebody to handle this, and I will make it as easy as possible for you. So I never told anyone they ever had to write a ledge report. I wrote the ledge reports. And sometimes I would get something from Melissa when she was the 33rd district, but for the most part, I just went to those CAPTA calls, and I took notes and I wrote things down and I looked things up and I put together a report and I sent it out to all the unit chairs. And I talked with all of them as well and told them, look, this is what you need to do. You need to at least come to this meeting, this one call a month. That's it. And then, of course, report that back. And I just tried my best to impress upon them that it wasn't, like you said, Karen, you can either make a big deal out of this or you could make a small deal out of this. But that piece of what we do for PTA needs to be represented at your board. It needs to be represented at every unit, because that's what PTA is. The advocacy part of it is really important. And so even if you're just getting the report from me and delivering that in some way, shape, or form to your board, then you're doing something. And that's, I think, how I did it. And I sent out a lot of emails. I would remind everyone. I did my best to make it as easy and seamless for them as possible. But I know not everyone has the ability to do that. But that's what I did at council. And I, really encourage everyone, if you haven't been to the conference, to the one in Sacramento, it will change your whole perspective. It really will. And then when you have that different, new, excited perspective, it's much easier to get other people excited and involved as well. So I think that's kind of how it worked for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved the ideas. I wish I had thought about any of this literally like 2 or 3 years ago. Because the Sacramento conference was so powerful. But the one thing I realized when I got back was in how do you digest it in a way that makes it meaningful for the people. And kind of the same thing, you know, if you listen to the California State monthly calls or you come to the 33rd District, it's a lot of big concepts, a lot of bill numbers, a lot of us, you know, assembly members and state senators. And I almost think like, you know, what Danielle was talking about, how do you make it easy and how do you make it meaningful and kind of connect it to the units? I love the idea of like a leave behind, kind of like taking the big concepts and making it into like an infographic, taking the big concepts and just using, you know, kind of simple language. I've been using GPT a bunch to like kind of, I think, make the writing of some things that are complex clearer, like a 3rd to 5th grade reading level. And you know, putting it in Canva and throwing a couple of icons, like that might be the thing that makes it easy for your person to report on and explain it in layman's terms. Because so much of what I've learned in the past year or two has really been that these concepts are important. They're critical to understand, but they're really big concepts. So trying to make it so that people can see the meaning in their life. And I think the same goes even if you guys are sending out alerts to members periodically, thinking of what are the turnkey things that they can do. Like if there's a link to an alert to contact a legislator, that's easy. If you want them to post this, provide them with some banners and some copy and a link to get more information. So I think trying to make it as seamless and easy for them to do their job. I loved what Karen had said about kind of, you know, trying to ensure that everyone knows that this is as much as you have to do. And here's a slide deck or, you know, 2 slides if you need them, like, so people can just use what they need to convey the message as succinctly and I think consistently as possible.
Yeah, we will definitely make sure that you have materials for your ledge report, because I know a lot of people are doing, you know, Zoom. I mean, we've gone is the day when we're just standing up in the cafeteria, right? Now we're all using slide decks and everything. So we need visuals. But I love your idea, Nan, of using ChatGPT. I'm also using it a lot. I do just want everyone to know it's not Google. It does not know information. You give it the information, it writes it nicer for you. But if you ask it questions that require information, it will just make up the information.
I'm putting my email in chat too. So if any of you guys want a quickie overview on prompts and how to use it in a way that's cool, I will tell you that it's still ever evolving. It does have biases. So, you know, that's one thing. AI is basically, it's fed everything that has existed electronically. And so that includes Reddit and that includes, you know, sketchy websites at times. So it does have that. And you never want to feed sensitive information, like non-public information, like your members' numbers. Don't put it into ChatGPT. Like that's not a good idea. But there's some really simple, like you don't have to be a genius to like use some of the prompts, you just have to know how to do it. You can even find probably some YouTube videos, but that is a good one when a lot of us feel like, I don't want to write anything. Maybe you don't feel comfortable writing. And again, these are big concepts. So you could always kind of feed what your rough thoughts and then ask it to generate something. And it does a decent job, but it's usually too verbose. And then you can say, shorten it more. Use bullet points and use some bullet and then
at basic reading level, like a 9th grade reading level. You can put in all the text from like a leave behind, like a 1-pager, and ask it to summarize it. You mustn't put in copyright materials. You mustn't put any personal information. It will turn up in somebody else's ChatGPT, and it doesn't know facts. It's not Google. It has a very limited database, and it ends in 2021. So it doesn't know anything that happened after 2021. So don't ask it questions. Ask it to rewrite stuff for you. But it's wonderful at that. Use Google if you have questions. But I think those are great resources. Does anyone else have any other questions as we're coming up towards the time?
It might be just me. Sorry.
No, it's a tricky time. And like I said, I think a lot of people are probably in observation mode as they're just trying to kind of absorb, like, what did I get into and how do I do this job, right? Or, if you're a leader like you are in your position, how do I support my units? What do I do for my council? So I would imagine in the coming calls that Karen will host that there'll be more discussion and people kind of sharing. And as we all get, better at this, we'll probably have more conversation where we're sharing out success stories and questions, right?
And with the calls, I won't record them. I know people don't always like being on camera when it's recorded, and I sympathize. But what I will do is I'll send out a summary, and I'll try to do that straight away. This time I got distracted waiting for something, and then it didn't get sent out straight away. But I'll try to just send out a summary that night of whatever we talked about, so that if you miss the call, it doesn't matter, right? You'll still get that information. And that, I'm trying to send out stuff that would be for your ledger report so that you can just copy and paste. That's the whole point of me giving you the information.
Well, thank you guys all so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much, Karen, for putting together this very interesting, super helpful training. I hope that you guys all got something out of it. Again, we will have a recording of this training in its entirety, including our little jam session at the end of this. And this won't be the last you'll hear of Karen, that's for sure. So thank you guys again so much. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.